In the meantime, though, let me introduce you to my first guest. He worked for the NHS for over 2 decades and decided to pen his memoirs in a book entitled Tales from a Male Nurse, which offers an insight into the lives of people working within the NHS. His book, it now is currently number 12 in the bestsellers list at Waterstones in Burton. No surprise, really, because some of his NHS career, a fairly decent chunk of it actually, was spent at Burton Hospital. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome Patrick K.S. Poon. Hello.
Morning. Thank you.
I'll give you your full book author title, first of all.
Thank you.
Good morning. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
So this book, apparently no other book has ever been written from a male nurse perspective in general nursing. Is that right?
That's right. When I started writing it last year, I went to Google before I wrote it. And there have been 2 or 3, but they're all from America or Canada. So I thought, perhaps I should have a go at that. As you may know, in nursing, people tend to think of they're all ladies. And male nurses constitute 10% of it. And 90% of the male nurses, they mostly work in psychiatry or in education. So there are many male nurses actually working in general nursing, really, in this country.
That's intriguing that the majority of them go into the specialist field of psychiatry. Why would that be?
I don't know. Maybe in a way, it's less physical work, it's more mental work. Mm. And they seem to specialize in operating theatre or education.
Yeah.
And not many, because I remember in my younger days as a female ward sister, charge nurse, and people said, why do you work, on a ward so busy? But in my younger days, I thought, that's the way you learn. And that's where I did.
Yes. In at the deep end almost is the best way to learn, isn't it?
That's right. At the time, I was in Mental Hospital Warsaw. Not that far away from here, and I was there 11 years as a charge nurse and nursing officer.
Yeah. So, from Hong Kong, you moved here when you were 19?
That's right.
Why? How did that all come about in the first place? Was it because you wanted to follow this medical career and you felt...
Yes, I did 10 months of psychiatric nursing in Hong Kong, actually.
Yeah.
I quite liked it. And I was not very good at DIY with a screwdriver or hammer. So I thought... what should I do in my life? And in psychiatric nursing, I quite liked giving out drugs and learning about nursing care. And I thought, perhaps I quite liked it. So I think that, and also with my father's brother was in China, sort of orderly assistant. And he encouraged me. So at the time in Hong Kong, getting into student nursing there then required a lot of academic qualifications. And I didn't have that.
What year are we talking then? When was
1968.
This? Okay.
Many moons ago.
And a man going into nursing, so in Hong Kong, was that considered a fairly usual thing to choose, or was it very much the same as here in Britain, that actually that was quite unusual?
Very unusual, yeah. In fact, I remember a friend of the family said, what a peculiar way to, to go into a career. And at the time, I knew nothing, and I thought I was just going to learn. And
was that difficult for you if you've got other people kind of suggesting that's not the right career for a man to do? Is that an odd thing to kind of overcome and go, I'm going to do it anyway?
No, it wasn't actually, because at the time, from the college friends in Hong Kong, 2 of them were quite devout Christians, and they liked nursing. And I thought, I'll give it a go. So at the time, I was younger, I feared nothing, I thought I had a go. And I stayed on for the rest of my life.
And no regrets at all. What a fabulous career you've had. I mean, where do we start? You arrive in the UK at age 19. Your first hospital experience was where?
In Newmarket General Hospital.
Okay.
I was there as a pupil nurse.
Yeah. For how long?
I was there for 2.5 years, and then I moved on to Kettering as a student nurse. And there I stayed there and I qualified 2 years on. And
so what's the difference between being a pupil nurse and being a student nurse?
Well, in those days, perhaps I didn't... Well, when I was in Hong Kong, I applied to 40, 50 hospitals in UK. I had 2 replies.
No.
Yeah.
It was that tough even back then?
That's right.
Crikey.
That's right, 2. And one was in Kent and one was in Newmarket. And the college friend of mine went to Newmarket. So I thought there's somebody I knew.
Yeah.
So that was the reason I went. And Yes, I've been very lucky in my life in nursing, I have to say.
So, although there was that initial battle of actually getting a reply and getting someone interested in taking you on at a UK hospital, did you find then that actually that your career progression was fairly smooth from then on in?
Yes, I think I've been quite lucky, and I study quite hard.
Yeah.
And
so that's not luck then, is it? That's you.
yeah, thank you. But, thank you.
Don't be modest.
Yeah, I think in this country, I have to say, and it's part in my chapter on my book as well, because I quite enjoy training, and whatever their courses there, I thought about it, and I did it, and I learned something.
I mean, we've already talked about the fact it can be a very physical job in general nursing.
That's right.
Most of the time, I would imagine it's pretty physical, actually. There's also the emotional side of it, isn't there?
That's right.
And that's something, I guess, even from those early days of being a student nurse, you've just got to learn to cope with it.
That's right. That's why there was a tale in my book about Kay's son. I was a charge nurse. I was sister then. And I was asked by a consultant to tell actually a staff's friend, the head of the catering, that her son is dying. And that was really quite an emotional thing for me.
Gosh.
And because it was so unusual, I wrote it, because I really feel very sorry for her.
So this lady, the mother, was a colleague, was somebody who worked in the hospital.
Yeah, she was the head of the catering, and I ate in the canteen every day.
And her son, what was he being treated for? What was
well, she unfortunately got cancer.
Right.
And he was about 28, 29 years old, like a skeleton on my ward. And I mean, he soon died afterwards. But unfortunately, I was the one who was asked to relay the bad news to her. So that was many years ago.
And that was very early on in your career that you were given that job to you've got to do it.
Yeah, I think I was about 28 years old then,
You still remember it now.
That's right.
So that's one of those kind of pivotal moments in your career, I guess.
That's right. That's why I wrote in my book, as if it happened 6 weeks ago.
Yeah. Yes. How weird. But how I mean, I suppose the great thing that you've done, and I know you've said in your own words, it's been a relief to offload my mind to paper. That's what you've said.
That's right. That's right. It was a painful relief. And I was surprised, actually, because my tennis friend said to me, how can you remember those things? And I said, I don't know. Although I got a habit. I've been writing diaries since age 16. And for many, many, many years. And I never consulted my diary.
You didn't have to?
No, I remember it all.
That vivid?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk more about some of the stories that you capture in your book. Real life stories, of course. These are your memoirs, memoirs of your male nursing career, which spanned how long in total? 27 years in the NHS?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Including 11 years at Burton Hospital. So we're going to talk more with Patrick in a moment about his book and all those other tales, which, like you say, seem like they were only a few weeks ago. So we'll give you time, Patrick, to think of a couple more of those tales that you'd like to share with us. And we're about talking to Patrick, and we've got the latest guest. Patrick Poon is with me talking about his book, Tales from a Male Nurse. And no book has ever been written from a male nurse perspective in general nursing in the UK. His work with the NHS General Hospitals spans 27 years, from arriving from Hong Kong to the UK at age 19. Some of that time, around about a decade really, was spent in Burton Hospital. In fact, you still, although you don't live in the area anymore, Patrick, because you're down in the lovely part of the world, Cornwall.
That's right.
You come up once a month because you come and visit your granddaughter, don't you?
That's right. That's right. We miss her. We love her dearly. And my wife and I, it really has changed my wife and my life, really. So we come up once a month to see her. And, I have to say I have a special fondness for, Burton and Derbyshire, because I've been around here for many years.
Let's talk about Burton, because in actual fact, obviously your time in working on wards, on general hospital wards, ended back in 2000, because you went into training, didn't you? You went into the education side in nursing. So going back over a decade, essentially, since you were working that tough, stressful job on the wards, you're still in touch with people who are still working the wards now. I mean, there must be vast changes in just those 13 years.
Yeah, that's why I go to the town quite a bit. I still bump into a lot of the ex-staff who knew me. I used to be in charge of 120 people on the surgical unit, and it was very nice that they remember me. But there again, I'm a Chinese, so you can't miss me much. And we converse, and they're still working in the hospital. But certainly from my point of view, this is a personal point of view, nobody seems to be too happy in the health service generally, and perhaps not just Burton Hospital, and even down south in Cornwall. And I bump into many nurses, and they all seem to think, all the changes don't seem to be for the better.
It's interesting because, of course, we know this review has started today. I mean, this all comes, of course, from the Staffordshire Hospital scandal. And now, obviously, Burton is one of the many hospitals nationwide that's been pinpointed because their mortality rate is above normal.
Right.
So, I mean, the review is in place to look at essentially quality of care. Do you not think this is something that needs to be done, so those changes should be made? I mean, look, from what you're saying with talking to old colleagues who are still working, these changes aren't improving anything.
Yes, it's sad to know that. I have to say in my days, when I was in the hospital, and they all seemed to be quite happy, and the quality of care was pretty good. In those days, I thought we were one of the best in those days. And I don't know, there have been so many years, there have been many changes. And I did read from the newspaper that Burton Hospital, sadly, it's one of the worst. One of the 10 worst in the country.
And that surprises you?
Yeah, it did really, because I showed it to my wife. I said, look, our hometown is there, and certainly it doesn't make us feel any better that now it's been so poor.
But I guess if so many of your old colleagues are saying they're unhappy, and this seems to be reflecting kind of the nationwide attitude to the NHS and working for the NHS, I mean, surely changes have to be made, don't they? Or do you think it's because changes are being made that's making it worse?
Yeah, you're right. There have been so many changes. And one thing I don't understand in the health service, there's always reorganization every 2 or 3 years. And this is an old hat. It seems to be more administrators, managers than people on the floor, really. Because in my days, when the big change came in 1990, it was the same too. Suddenly we have developments of a lot of business managers, and they're all from the same kitty. There was no increase in the budget. It's mentioned in my book, actually, because I was quite against it at the time. And from the kitty, suddenly a chunk of the wages gone to the business manager and administrators. And we cut the nurses and we cut the doctors, and thinking that perhaps we may have a cheaper way in nursing.
And do you think, because obviously that the cuts are then made, so the budget isn't there for as many nurses, so they're working as hard as they possibly can do, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out that actually if you've got a reduced number of nurses actually doing the job, actually working with the patients, then that quality of care has surely got to slide, hasn't it?
That's right. And also, another thing is, this is not Burton Hospital's fault. I think in my days as well, every year you got to make 2 or 3%, they call it efficiency saving, right? Every year. So in other words, even nothing happens, you have to save yourself 2 or 3% of millions of budget from the hospital. So like you say, it doesn't make a rocket scientist to say that you got to cut staffing, haven't you?
Yeah. So let's cut some of the management that you managed for all your years in your career without.
Well, I certainly quite sarcastic in my book. In my days when I was studying, I always remember my old lecturer said, in the old days in the health service, the whole hospital was run by an administrator and a dog. and the chief nurse and the chief doctor.
Right.
And now we have director of estates, we have director of catering, we have director of this, director of that, and they were on a lot of money, far more than nurses, and all the wages come from the same kitty.
And all these different titles aren't helping the patients.
That's why.
And they should come first.
That's why. And just by coincidence, in my book also, I suppose the health service won't like me to say that, but that's where I felt.
Absolutely. And we like the fact that you are very honest in some of the stories. I mean, obviously, we haven't got time to go into all of them. But some of the many tales that you tell in this book, Tales from a Male Nurse, which is number 12 in the bestsellers list at Burton Waterstones. We have to mention that.
Thank you.
Let's big it up, Patrick.
Thank you.
And the many tales you tell, there's one tale of a qualified surgeon who was caught stealing a chicken from a supermarket. That's surely not.
Yeah, it did happen. Not in Burton Hospital, but I shan't tell you where. But it's a genuine story. And I used to play tennis with him. And I didn't know. He didn't tell me. His other junior doctor told me that his contract won't be renewed. And I asked why. Oh, haven't you read the local paper? I said, no. Oh, it's been reported on somehow in the supermarket. He was buying a frozen chicken, and he swapped the price of the tag. And I don't know why.
So get it cheaper.
Yeah, he was earning far more money than me. And it is in my book also that, in fact, I don't know why either. I think he might have a mistress and so on. And he used to borrow some money from me. Oh. And he earned far more money than me, actually. And I thought something like that, really unusual, happened in your life. I thought I'd mention it. I didn't mention his name, but
Yeah, absolutely. You also mentioned about the first and only time you had to kick a patient.
Yeah, that was terrible. That was somewhere in Hong Kong in my old days.
Yeah.
In my old days, really. And yes, I mean, in those days I was 18, and I think I was living with my roommate, and we worked on the same ward, and he was hit by a schizophrenic patient. And really damaged his eyes, and he was wearing glasses. And I remember vividly. And I went to the hospital to see he's all right. And luckily, he had an operation, he was okay. But also, he was quite scarred. Mm. And I didn't know at the time that it was a sort of a ward tradition that it happened from a patient. And the charge nurse started all this. At the time, among 15 staff, I was nobody. I was innocent and naive, really. Mm. And yeah, they were all doing that. It was really quite, I mean, these days now, I wonder if it happened still. I doubt it. But those were in the old days, so I don't know in psychiatry. And when I told my parents, they were not too surprised. I said, oh, really? And the irony was, I did. And my foot was hurting, and my mum had to rub some ointment to make sure my foot is all right, But luckily, the patient himself was okay.
Yeah.
In spite of all this ill treatment. And yes, I surely hope now it won't be happening. Yeah.
I mean, you talk a lot in the book as well about the stresses of being in the nursing profession. And we've talked about changes over the decades, but I think that's probably something that's never ever changed, has it?
No.
It is a stressful job.
Extremely. I think I really feel sorry for people working there, because most people working there now, I think they stay in for the money, really, because generally they're quite well paid in private sector than working in a shop and so on. But the stress is amazing. Yeah, one of the things I mentioned is I was taking a ward sister home. It was her last day of retirement, and she was the best sister I ever worked with. I was a nursing officer then. She didn't drive, so I drove her home. And when we said goodbye, have a hug, and she said, I can sleep now. And I said, that's strange. You always seem to me the best behaved and always laid-back sister, always in control. And then she said to Patrick, I haven't slept well for 15 years.
Oh, really?
I said, really?
So she'd hidden that.
So well, and she said, because in those days and now, what managers and what sisters, they have to have a continuous responsibility, even though on the days off is the ward, everything happened is their fault. Mm. So I didn't realize she'd been so worried and stressed. It's amazing what the stress level is in the hospital, really. And also, of course, now with all the scandal and all the things bad about it,
Would you, if you were that 19-year-old now, would you go into that profession now, do you think?
Actually, it's strange. I would actually, because when I was in education, I was told off the last many years because I'm advocate for nursing, and I still think that a lot of my students, they will make good nurses. And I remember once in the college, one boss told me off. So, Patrick, you shouldn't advertise for nursing because they got no jobs to go back to. Now they're qualified and they have to work in the shop. Although it's true. But I suppose I said selfishly that, nursing has given me a fair life, a stable life. I suppose if you went in now at 19, you probably didn't know anything different, maybe. So I think there's still a need for nursing, and it's a special profession. And yes, I'll be still an advocate for that.
If there's someone who is in training at the moment, in the training stages, or considering going into the profession of nursing, is this book going to put them off, Patrick?
Oh, I hope not. I hope not. Actually, my brother and sister from Hong Kong ordered quite a few copies, and they thought it was quite inspirational, which was nice.
Great.
And
that's what you want.
That's right, which was nice. And I thought, that's good to know that it's inspirational.
Yeah.
I suppose I think my book was reviewed by Goodread by somebody I don't know. And I don't know how he got a copy of it. There's been some nice words said about it. And one of the quotes he said was from my book, and I didn't realize I wrote it. And I put down, most of the nurses are sentimental breed. And I suppose I'm a sentimentalist.
Absolutely. And clearly got very vivid memories of all your years, which are now in this book. So this is Tales from a Male Nurse, written by Patrick Poon, who you've just been listening to. Patrick, lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
Andy